Hello, thank you very much. It's Monday, and today we're going to have a very special interview live Instagram with a person that I follow, his account, which I believe is one of the most exciting accounts on Instagram. It's a person that is dedicated to the selection of the most beautiful images and inspirational quotes on Instagram. His name is David M. Watts, and he lives in London. He's in the world of fashion, art, and magazines and beautiful things. And I decided to interview him today because I believe his Instagram page is just unbelievable. So I actually wrote up to him and I asked him to see if he was able to give me an interview. And here we are. We're going to be talking to him about his passion, his interest, why he is have built this amazing Instagram page, and for us it's just such an inspiration. For us, his world of beauty is a daily feed of good taste. So we're gonna be here with David talking, hoping the Instagram is performing fantastic today. David,
Hello.
how are you? You're quite sharp today.
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Thank you very much. David, thank you very much for give us your time to talk about this creation that you have done, which is your Instagram page, and such a, you have curated unbelievably well, and we follow it all the time. So we wanted to know a bit more about yourself. Tell us about your career, and then we're gonna jump into these beautiful images.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me to come onto your Instagram live. It's very exciting. Um, my background ostensibly was fashion. So I started in creative as a designer, running design teams, managing creative direction, managing teams for a very large textile company in the UK, and moved across to the business, really focusing on understanding and learning the entire business of fashion. So it was very much because I was very interested in it myself. So going from creative to the business, spent many years working in different brands across fashion and accessories, women's wear, primarily children's wear, and then moved into licensing. Sort of did spend a number of years in brand licensing, which was really big in the late 80s, early 90s. Big brands like Disney and Hanna-Barbera and Turner, were doing huge licensing deals. And there was also a lot of movie deals, big movie licensing opportunities then. So it was a very, very big business. And then I moved kind of into business support for a lot of fashion design businesses, primarily a lot of startups. So really working on one-to-one support with designers, small brands, startup businesses, really to help them focus on all the cornerstones. So from the product to the sales and marketing, manufacturing, and then more recently, how digital has impacted on that. 5 years ago, I set up my own consultancy proper here in London and decided to move a little bit away from fashion directly, but as it transpires, moved into doing projects that were fashion related, of course, working with the Chinese government to develop a fashion project in Hong Kong, which is called Fashion Asia. And that ended up being a showcase of emerging and new establishment Asian designers, which happens in Hong Kong annually, and an annual luxury fashion conference. So that took me for a couple of years in Hong Kong and China, and simultaneously working on a big project in America with a big company who are looking to develop a fashion collaboration with new and contemporary and new established designers. So working with them to allow the company to be able to access the designers to use some of their technical product in their fashion collections, which gave a kind of a win-win situation for the brand who wants to be seen as more associated with fashion brands and less generic. And then, of course, it gave the designers an amazing opportunity to work with big component manufacturing branding company who are able to give them access to print and embroidery and technical development for their fashion. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 5 years, in addition to publishing a men's lifestyle magazine, print magazine, and spending my creative time posting on Instagram, which caught your attention.
So absolutely, you know, what a brilliant career. Which is important now to know is that, you know, I'm going to give a little walkthrough of these amazing images that I select through your account in Instagram, which they're very inspirational to me, as I mentioned before. And at the same time, you know, they are, I guess, found by you. How many hours do you spend on Instagram a day? And why do you decide to build this page?
I don't actually spend a lot of time on Instagram generally. I tend to post first thing in the morning, my time. Really, Instagram is purely a creative outlet just for me. The fact that I've built up quite a following is purely coincidental. It's not commercial. It's not my business. Whilst I am a consultant and I am a creative consultant, Instagram was purely a personal thing for myself. You know, it started purely by fluke. I was in a situation whereby I'd actually had a back injury, and my doctor had told me to take email off my telephone, and I was incredibly bored sitting around and started to use Instagram, and immediately became fascinated by how a picture can tell 1,000 words. And I've always been interested in photography, and, you know, my whole background being in fashion and creative. And actually I spent a number of years working with a newspaper. So I did photojournalism, etc. So really it just came about because I love visual imagery. I just find it fascinating, and it's so polarizing in some ways. I don't understand why my eye is drawn to things it does, but over the years that I've been doing Instagram, it has resonated with a lot of people. I mean, I get a lot of messages from people saying they follow my Instagram daily, and they want to know where I find these images and why I post what I post, and that they absolutely love my aesthetic. So it clearly resonates with some people.
Yeah, it does. You know, it's so funny. I got introduced by your page by an actress in Los Angeles. You know, she's an actress and a writer. Her name is Isabela Santo Domingo from Colombia, and she's very successful and very curatorial on the people that she follow. And you know, I was starting to be part of sort of the Instagram kind of thing. And suddenly, when I got your page, I started to look it up, and I was like, "This is fantastic!" You know, because it's a delicious menage between fashion, design, art, cultural commentaries, and at the same time, you sometimes flip these incredible comments, you know, which actually inspired me to do my 10 Instagram best weekly comments, because there's so many, you know, and they could be quite educating if you really listen to them or read to them. Yes.
Yes, people do say, it's quite interesting because some people do say to me, "Oh, you know, it's like you're reading my mind. You post, you know, a little comment or a remark or a saying that just, you know, is totally where my head is at right now," which is very interesting. Again, you know, it's not premeditated on my part. I really just, as I'm going through my day, I just happen to come across images because, you know, a lot of what I do is also visual and creative. So, and I just save them to my camera roll, and then I post them every morning. It's purely spontaneous, no planning, no organizing, no robots.
Well, it takes organizing my part to do my 10 weeks, because you know you have to save them. Then lately there are so many wonderful messages about the situation that we live now since to COVID-19, or the amazing moment that we live now, finally, you know, to stop racism and everywhere in the world. And but you know, when I got it, and when I start to study your Instagram page, it was so funny. They're doing a construction in my building, and I think they just choose now to do something on the hallway. Hope not. Um, but sorry for the noise. But then it's a combination of, there is a touch of Asia, there is a touch of sort of memorabilia and fashion, lots of color, nothing is minimal, and there are exquisite moments such as these ones, where architectural meet nature, and that, I wonder where you find them, because I actually, follow lots of creative people, but they don't publish that, so I'm very surprised, when you just go around and just choose these amazing images. What is it in your mind, at the moment? Is your daily mood, or is just because they are there, and you have a, I know you say there are no automatic, but it is something that you have to have in your brain?
Absolutely. I don't dispute that. I think there's a couple of things that go on inside people's heads. I mean, for me, sometimes I'm working on a project, or I have something in my mind, or I've seen something that just triggers a thought process. And that in turn, I will kind of search out images, or I'll find things that I'm looking for in relation to that. Um, but also, we are kind of, we don't realize that we are very much, we're very sponge-like as human beings. We take in, absorb, a lot of information, and subliminally and unconsciously. And you'll know this from being an art dealer. You could probably go into a room and look at 100 pieces of art, and you could in 10 seconds pick 12 items from 100 pieces that are the best pieces in the room. And probably you could sell them, and you would love them, and they'd probably be very successful. Now, you don't know why you can do that, but you can do it. So, I kind of equate the same thing. It's almost like, it's built up over years and years and years of exposure to things. And you kind of have filters, subliminal filters, unconscious filters, and you just happen to, your eye travels to things that you like. Now, from my personal point of view, and all modesty aside, I believe that I have very good taste, and I don't think everybody does. So, if you add a layer of having, what a lot of people would consider to be better taste, or a more informed taste, then you start to select things and select images that obviously resonate with more people. So I think it's partly a combination of all of those factors. But again, no absolute plan, and it will really depend on the time, my mindset that morning when I wake up, and it's like, how am I feeling? What am I thinking about? What comes to my head? And I just start picking images or posting images that I will select, and go from there.
And there is always this, when I went through, I start from the beginning, and I choose sort of my favorite images of everything, and I start to see, first of all, great photographers such as Irving Penn, then old portraits and new portraits, and it's that correlation that happened maybe during the day. For me as a creative person, when I see these images, they certainly are very uplifting, because it kind of give me hope. There is something up there on the other side that is beautiful, and that is created, and then somebody have created. And it's very difficult to credit them, because sometimes just people just put the images, but you don't know where they're coming from, or who is the artist, or who is the photographer. Have you received emails, from people, looking for credit, or emails for people, and or looking to find out where you get that image? Which is certainly you're going to receive one from me, because there's some artists that I wanted to discover who they are. Maybe have you received funny emails or anything that is worth comment?
In truth, I mean, I've kind of explained this in a vlog that I did. The challenge I have is that where I come across images kind of so randomly, it's very difficult, and not always, and actually a lot of the time they don't have an image credit. So there's no photographer, there's no stylist, there's no artist credited a lot of the times. Anytime there is, I will post it, because I really like to give people credit for their work. but it's very, very difficult. And also sometimes if you pick up images, people have, if it's somebody else has posted it or somebody else has commented on it, whether that might be, you can't really fact check if that fact is correct. You know, I will sometimes go and search for that artist on Google to see, or that photographer, to see if it is that their work. But the downside is that if I was to spend all of the time researching every single image to find credits, it would become a full-time job, and I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, it's funny because since we start to do these talks, it was like a month and a half ago. We already going in the 7 weeks. We started first trying to support our artists. There some of them are struggling, some of them are very successful, and then we realized that okay, we finished with the 34 artists that we represent. And then who am I going to interview? So I reach out to lots of friends. Some of them say no, some of them say yes. We've been recording these amazing interviews of book editors, publishers, artists, museum directors, curators, and Instagram is such a great platform, especially for me now. It's my social time. At noon I feel like I'm going out for cocktails with people anywhere in the world. I'm talking about what I like. Is something that it happened to you now in London?
I have to say, Instagram, it actually has been quite remarkable in the last couple of years. It's a slightly weird thing because by nature I'm quite a private person, and I didn't really get around to posting videos or vlogs at all on Instagram until about last year, and got a lot of very positive feedback from lots of people. And it was very interesting how it resonated with lots of people, just things that I was saying and things that I was talking about. And actually, one of the most extraordinary posts that I did was actually about my Instagram, and it got thousands of views. People were going, "Oh my God, we want to know how you do your Instagram, where do you find the images, what do you do, etc." So that was very interesting. It's also one of those things that you don't realize how much, you never quite realize how much people are following you or are interested in you generally. I get a lot of people comment and send me messages and, post comments on my posts, which is very nice, and like things, which is amazing. But you kind of also forget that there are a lot of people out there who don't necessarily comment or don't come back to you, but are following you and are very interested in your profile and also talking about you. I had some extraordinary experiences. I was in Hong Kong on one occasion and in Lane Crawford department store, and a woman came up to me and said, "Excuse me for interrupting, but are you David M. Watts from Instagram?" And I was slightly taken aback, and I said, "Yes." And she said, "Oh my God, my boss and I are obsessed with your Instagram. We follow you every day. It's amazing." I have to tell her, I've met you. I can't believe it. And I said, "How did you recognize me from a little photograph on an Instagram profile?" And she said, "Oh my God, we've been following you for like the last 3 years. We're obsessed with your Instagram." And I just thought I was so taken aback, and it was really, very flattering, but also a little bit scary. Kind of to think it's kind of weird. And I've had very strange, people coming up to me on the street in London asking me if I was David M. Watts from Instagram because they follow my Instagram. And in department stores, I was in Harvey Nichols one day, and the sales guy came up to me and said, he just looked at me and smiled and said, "Love your Instagram. Everybody on this floor follows you on Instagram," and carried on walking. And I was just so taken aback. So in some respects, it's very
You have a
surprising.
major responsibility.
But well, I'm doing it, I'm actually not doing it for anybody else but myself. It just happens to be that other people like it. So, you take it or you leave it, in my sense.
Yeah, but it's so. I feel personally, that doing these daily talks, you know, sometimes I got 100 viewers, 20 viewers, whatever. But during the time, first of all, I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it to help my artists. I'm doing to spread something positive during the day. And I think that is pretty much what you do every day for us. And as when I decide to write to you, last week, I never even expect an answer, and you immediately very graciously accepted the interview. And I will say you are the only person that I'm interviewing that I don't know. So which is kind of great. We have a lovely chat yesterday about art and design. There is people who are loving you, seeing you live, because they certainly want to put their face to the creative person, and at the time you reflect during, while we talk, and during the conversation, that you're a person that are very much interested in beautiful things, and to make the world better. So I do thank you for that. So that's something that you should keep doing every day.
Yes, I mean, as I said, I love it. It is a creative outlet because, it's very interesting. I was talking, I was doing another Instagram live with a brand, and we were talking about, post-pandemic business strategy. And one of the things I was talking about was, during this pandemic, it has allowed us to take a little bit of time to do some of the creative things as creative people that we don't always get a chance to do in our day-to-day life, because we usually spend, I say, talk about the 80-20 rule. You do 80% running your business, 20% doing the fun stuff, and the creative. And actually, what is really nice is to have time to be able to do the creative a little bit more free thinking. So that's been really, really nice, to do.
Okay.
And also, it's not a pressure. It's not, for me, you see, it's not a job. It's something it's just fun. So
Have you got, I'm sorry to interrupt, have you got any decent proposals, with Instagram to do business just because your page?
Yes.
What?
I actually, yes. I'm working currently with a client in Los Angeles, and the client followed my Instagram, and then reached out to me and said, we're obsessed with your Instagram. We love your style. We want your taste. Would you come and work with us?
So that's fantastic. So you got a decent proposal. Have you got an indecent one?
No.
Okay. It is, this bathroom is actually one of my favorite posts, as a designer, as well, I just simply wanted to live in that room, I just want to comment that one, and it's just divine, to see these urban pen images next to something that is not urban pen, it's to see that correlation is quite remarkable. I just put arbitrary these images together, by the way. There are no the read on of your feed, on Instagram. It was just my personal selection. I hope you don't get offended when I conjunct on of that. I know you say that there is I feel actually complimented when people copy me on Instagram. I actually think it's the greatest compliment.
I think it's very. I am in no way offended or upset. The point of what I do is purely for me, and if people get enjoyment from that, that's fantastic. Into what you were saying about the juxtaposition, I don't plan what image comes next. I just post the images. So there isn't a thought process that I'm conscious of. So again, it is purely random. I do know that within personal taste and things that I like, there are certain parameters, and you'll see it repeating, through the images. I love minimalism. I love, I'm a big Japanophile, so I love anything Japanese. I'm obsessed, mildly obsessed with kind of polarized, hyper masculinity, hyper femininity. And I love the juxtaposition. But then I love it when it's twisted on its head, and you get, a man who has soft curls, or, a demi-wave, or 1920s, or a woman who's like very, power suiting, So I love that juxtaposition. Similarly with less is the new more. Similarly, I love where there is a unity. So I think one of the images you selected was a very neutral wooden bath with slatted, with like stone or neutral walls, and sand, all neutrals. And I think, that's one of those things whereby I think we're very much, that's kind of fashion led, because we have gone through a new neutrals. And obviously being in the fashion industry, I am influenced by editorial and fashion, and etc. So there are lots of influences. But then similarly with interiors, I love, whilst I love minimalism and Zen minimalism, I also love maximalism. The Gucci interiors, totally over the top brocades, things that are sumptuously beautiful and colorful, I think are extraordinary. But contrary to that, I also love black and white, stark black and white images.
Yeah.
So again,
It's
there isn't a rationale, but it tends to all sort of meld into a kind of, well, the feed that it is, I suppose. And people just find it really, I think people find it fascinating because they never anticipate what's coming next.
absolutely, like in this case, I got hooked by the young post just because that post. I was like, this is extraordinary. And then I just, I was crazy about the whole, Jude Law and David Malkovich, sort of correlation between, plus this is the greatest Italian director who have done these productions, and it's just visually so fulfilling, for us, that we are now in lockdown. What else you consider? You see your own house, every day. So Instagram is such a wonderful escape, to discover this art and craft that maybe they are part of an African art and craft, and then just go back to this amazing image of Kusama, this maximalist that is also reflect for me in the way to the vegetables. When I put them together, I was just like playing around, almost like with your own palette of colors.
It's quite interesting you say that, because there are one or two people who use my images, who use my Instagram feed for their mood boards. And they're welcome to do so because they're not my images. But it's fascinating because they send back to me the collages of the images that they have used with their mood board or their products. And I find it totally fascinating because it's totally different to anything I would put together. But I love the fact that I can influence somebody else to do something that they want to do with their creative. I think that's fantastic, and I find that really joyful.
Yeah, I think part of working every day, and not feeding yourself, with beautiful things is a major mistake. I think even television now has such an incredible productions. They can feed you visually if you don't go to the movies. For me, that I'm a movie freak. I love to go to the movies. They're such a great inspiration. The moment is fantastic, just to be in that darkness and to just focus on these beautiful images. Instagram have become sometimes, that sort of moment that in the middle of the night I cannot sleep and I just go and look for beautiful things to see. And what is your favorite Instagram page?
My favorite Instagram page. Oh, you're putting me on the spot. Oh,
You can give me a couple.
I tell you, I don't have a favorite. I do actually keep up with quite a lot of people because I find it really inspirational to follow to see what other people are posting. So I don't have particular favorites, but for different reasons and different minds, when I'm in a different mindset. I particularly like interiors. There is a Scandinavian hotel called Et Helm, and it's very kind of natural, minimalist, and it's very Scandi cool, and it's just one of the most. They just have it. It's a beautiful. I've never been. It's a beautiful hotel that I would love. It's kind of a boutique hotel that I would love to visit, and it just there are some that I really like.
Yeah.
But I'm very, in that respect, I don't focus in on certain people and follow them. I just tend to, like everybody else, I scroll through occasionally and I'll come across things. But then because I have the number of people who kind of come back on a daily basis to comment on my feed, I end up, if I go into my kind of review feed, it's actually a couple of thousand. So I tend to just then click on people's profiles and have a look at what they posted, or it comes up on my feed because, the people I follow are people that, follow me, etc. So, it comes up in my Instagram feed, but I don't specifically go and look out certain people. There probably people come to mind, but generally I tend to just kind of go flow.
Yeah, this fantastic image of Daniel Ashram, which is a fantastic Miamian artist who actually I knew and for many years in Miami, and now he's such a big star. He's also it's one of the most beautiful ones done. Now he's doing a collaboration with Dior and have his own sneaker lines, and it's just to see all of that between the tires and lavender and this amazing gorgeous woman with these big rings. The full of color that you use to select these images is quite. Do you go through a selection every day, or is something that you just save, and then one day you just choose what do you do every day?
I tend to just as I see things, because I'm online, I'm on Google, I'm researching things, I'm working on things. So, as you do, or things that come to you on, digitally, I just save them. But it is that, people find it hard to believe that I do that spontaneously, but I do. Because if I had to spend that time doing it, I wouldn't do it because it would be too much. It would be too much work. So it genuinely is. But I mean, what you say, I do love super saturated color. Yeah, example. But then the diametrically opposed, I'm obsessed with black and white photography. It's one of my favorite things. So it's very strange, but it will go from, super saturated to pure, almost linear black and white, shadows and lights. So, there isn't any rationale. It's just somewhere inside my head. It's all a melange.
Do you recognize who is the photographer for this particular image?
I don't, because I think that actually is an advertisement for the rugs.
For the rock company, yes. Yeah, this is a Palomo from
Palermo,
Spain,
Spain, yes.
which is
I
quite.
love, I love again I love hyper masculinity, hyper sexuality, and I love that juxtaposition where people have the bravery to be able to do something outrageous for editorial and to put men into those outfits, but without making it look costume or silly. I mean, some people might like it, but I just think it's amazing. I happen to love Palomo. I think they're such an extraordinary brand.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm an, it's such an amazing designer. I'm surprised he hasn't been hitched by one of the biggest houses, because I guess when they take them, they destroy them. It's very difficult to make them better. I love this particular image of a dear friend, Lenny Kravitz, next to this spectacular Basquiat. It's just the sexiest one in the world. Or this one, I think it's her ribs, which is an all image of her ribs.
yes,
This,
yeah, black and white. My two of my favorites were Bruce Weber, and Herbert's. Herbert's is one of my favorites, all-time favorites. His ad campaigns for Giorgio Armani in the 80s with the naked men were just without being salacious or titillating, were the most extraordinary photographs.
and
But
then
some of the most amazing campaigns.
yeah, and you jump to just get Lolita Lempica, beautiful paintings. It's just a truly work. It's a melange, of different things. This amazing orange. That's one of your colors, I believe, and also is the favorite color of one of the greatest writers and English writer that live in New York, a musician who also have an amazing Instagram, Christopher Mason. He adore orange, so his entire Instagram is all of orange. So it's quite fascinating to see your interior pages like this. You know,
I
tomorrow.
go I go through phases, particularly with the interiors, because yes, I love color, and I do get hooked on bright colors sometimes. And the orange just focus as of pink. People pink. I'm a bit obsessed with pink, but also I love that juxtaposition of an old traditional rustic Italian apartment, and then the walls are done with this beautiful ochre sort of golden patina. And this image actually is for the wall. Is actually for the walls. So the wall treatments. So it's not actually antique. It's actually painted. It is a contemporary painting. So, sorry, contemporary paint treatment. So it's that thing of whereby you just for me, I just see something and I just latch onto it, particularly again with interiors.
Yeah, tomorrow we are interviewing actually a great, talented man, which I believe also have an incredible book. And I think we lost you. Your camera went, okay. We're interviewing Miguel Flores Viana, which is an Argentinian English now resident who have published the most beautiful books, Haute Bohème and I Have to Travel, I guess, but he have the most beautiful taste. And he has discovered these spectacular interiors all around the world, and he will be part of our interview tomorrow, by the way. And his interiors remind me very much this selection. And then suddenly, the May the Bride Shall Burn light the way. Suddenly a message like this in the middle of everything is really good sometimes to get it.
Well, sometimes it's genuinely how I'm feeling. That some of the things that come up are genuine sentiments. I'm having maybe not such a great day, or somebody's ticked me off, or I'm having I'm full of enthusiasm, and I'm motivated, and I'm kind of, yeah, let's go for it. Let's really make it work. Let's go for today. Other times somebody says something, I just feel I really want to go and just slap them in the face. So, sometimes the expressions pop up, and sometimes they're very on message. Sometimes it's just a whim or a thought at that time.
And also, this contemporary couple, this image is so Italian, but, so there, so perfect,
Well, that's also because that's at Pitti in Florence, the men's show. And, I used to go to Pitti every season. And Pitti Uomo has become very famous for having they call them the Pitti Peacock. So it's all the men who dress up in their suits, tailoring, and particularly in summer when you go for the summer show, it is extraordinary. And they line the walls, and they sit on all the walls around Pitti, around the trade show. And there are hundreds, thousands of men, and it's become this thing, all the Pitti Peacock. That image is just, it's just the new tailoring. It's also very much on fashion, in fashion, tailoring is coming back into vogue, and that was just such a perfect moment. It's also the composition, the tilt of the hats, etc. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, what about this? This is just spectacular. We go through everything, and see these spectacular lessons of color, and taste that is all around the world. I think bad taste is something that should be punished every day, because there is so many wonderful things out there, to get inspired by. I actually, funny because this photographer, and with the blue lines, is actually a photographer from Ghana. They have a great Instagram, and I follow. And then you go back to minimalist. Here it is. The spirit is continuously going. This is you have seen also that the reaction of your Instagram during these awful times that we are living now through COVID-19, and also to Black Lives Matter. You have seen that in a way, this movement expressing this beauty, is something that is helping people. You hope that?
I would certainly like to think it inspires people. Yes, I think I do get quite a lot of people coming back to me and telling me that they find my images absolutely inspirational, and that it does lift them up. And I do find people who say, they come and say they've used my images for their mood boards and theme boards, and it's given them some really good ideas for their collections. And I say to them, you can send me a check anytime. But I think I don't mind. But I think it does. I mean, I think that's one of the things about Instagram. My Instagram was never really about posting selfie. It wasn't really about me. It was really about my creative process. And I think, people, it's very interesting because people do read me in the images, even though they haven't met me before. And people kind of go, I feel I know you. And I get messages from people, talking about things that aren't necessarily Instagram related, because they think they know me. And I kind of had to point out, we've never met, and there is a certain level of familiarity through feeling an attachment to the Instagram feed, which is quite extraordinary. It's quite. I suppose it's something like how celebrity people must, how people must feel when people think they know them, but actually they've never met them. And it's kind of
It could be
weird, but
scary. It could be scary to be out there, and be publicly, having your life out there, I, I can relate sometimes to these people that really have a very bad time, because you have a responsibility, and at the same time, perhaps you don't know what you portray. you know.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I also think, part of, one of the sensitivities that I have, or in my opinion about social media, is that it does create an echo chamber, and people are caught up in that echo chamber in that moment. But actually, that isn't real life, and it isn't the person, and it's also only your interpretation of what you're seeing. The person isn't there telling you things and giving you information. So it's purely you're projecting your thoughts, your processes, your knowledge, your taste onto that person. And that's incredibly dangerous because we forget, because we all do it, you forget that it's not the person, it's you projecting onto the person.
Yeah, it's funny because you're absolutely right all about that, And then when I found this picture, I realized that this actually is a character that lives in London and dress every day like this. And I saw him the other day in a live Instagram. What is the story of him? I'm very curious.
I think he loves period. He just feels that he was born out beyond, in the wrong time, and he loves period dressing. So he's chosen to dress in period costume.
And his life is perfect. Oh, you see, Ma- Malkovich here is just unbelievable.
Again, it's also the play on, the imagery.
Texture.
I'm an absolute believer that a picture speaks 1,000 words, and which is why Instagram can be so powerful. But it's also, to me, it's every element. And of course, I've worked, I come from a fashion background. I've been a creative director for 30 years. So, I publish magazines. So, my eye is very different, but it's still, all encompassing. So it's still things that get my attention, grab my eye, and make, a powerful statement to me. It's, sometimes they stop me in the tracks.
Yeah, but it is. What do you think is the future now in terms of, you know, Isabella Blow here? I guess, the future for us now without being exposed to urban. People not walking in the street any longer, less photo shoots of reality. I guess many of the photo shoots are directed via Instagram, or via, Mayor Alas just did one with Pharrell where he directed completely via Instagram and took pictures to his phone. What do you think is going to happen now in terms of inspiration? Is people are going to be in lockdown for what I believe is going to be a long time?
Well, I think that will differ. I agree with you. I think things will change, but I also think that, you know, creativity is one of those things that you can't use it up. The more you use, the more you have. So it's actually out of adversity comes more creativity because you have to be more creative. And if you have less things to be creative with, you just have to be more creative. So I genuinely believe that out of this will come extraordinary things. And I think also it doesn't limit you physically to have to do something to be able to create something. So, I think, and I also think that things will revert in a physical sense much faster than we anticipate.
Yeah. I actually, one of the funny things that I was thinking about it and talking to an art collector the other day is that because going to be, we are isolated already for a couple of months, and I think the cure is going to happen only when you are able to pour yourself a glass of water from the tube and drink it, because how are you going to distribute a vaccine for all of us? I think it's going to be very difficult. But in a way, here in America, especially in Miami, they open halfway and there are 20,000 cases again. I think we're going to stay for a long time, captive in our workplaces. We're going to be able to go out. We're going to be able to do certain things. But at the same time, I think we're going to go back to the basics and also go back to the inspiration that we can find online. And classics are going to become the new things. To be able to create new images now is actually less and less possible. So the research of the classics, I have seen it now, especially in art, people buying Horse Be Horse or all the artists that we represent. They wanted to buy pieces that they can live with. I don't think people wanted to buy any longer the picture of the parking lot of Walmart or a piece of stone or somebody suffering. They want to be surrounded by beautiful things. So I think what you do, in a way, is publishing all these pieces. There's some old, there's some new, there's some created digitally, are source of inspiration for people to look for more beauty online. What do you think?
I think that's a very interesting assessment, and I certainly hope that is the case. I think that you're right in some respects. I think we will. There's a certain looking back, but then there always tends to be. But that's also a little bit of nostalgia, which is kind of, nostalgia. It's a very weird thing because you can never really look back, because when we look back, we're looking back through contemporary eyes. So, and I heard a really interesting explanation about nostalgia and about memory, and it was a scientific study, and it was saying that the reason that people have very different accounts of the same event is that when we look back and when we reminisce and we're being nostalgic about a certain thing or a certain time, that actually we're not actually remembering the time, we're remembering the last time we remembered it. So our memory becomes slightly distorted every time, which is kind of what nostalgia is, because we look back and we think, oh, it was amazing.
Yeah,
but I think, true. I think generally speaking that what I think will happen is that there is certainly a better quality or a qualitative essence that's coming through. I think people are beginning to appreciate and will kind of are starting to understand, because I think we've been overexposed to so many things. Digital overload and a lot of really bad things. So I think people are learning to filter more. I know I am. People are learning to be a little bit more critical in terms of judgment, and I think that's a good thing. So and I think partly in the context of particularly like Instagram, there are a lot of people doing a lot of things on a daily basis, and people who are posting things that really are just ordinary. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but they're not extraordinary images. So invariably, I think the good stuff will kind of move to the top and becomes more regular, because the people that aren't posting good stuff, people aren't just not going to engage with. And the less engagement you get on Instagram, the further you fall down the algorithm, which means that you don't get, you don't appear in people's feeds, I believe.
Which I'm very pleased about it. And, Instagram is going to cut us any moment now. But I just want to end up with one point. First of all, say thank you very much for your time. Keep bringing all these amazing images. I went through your entire Instagram and I was satisfied to know that you don't have one Kardashian. And that made me really happy.
Celebrity is not my thing.
I'm so glad. So I saw great celebrities such as Jean Cocteau, which I think is just divine, So I really want to say thank you, David. Any last message you want to give us?
Just to say thank you. It's been very interesting to talk and see some of my own Instagram. And I hope it's been enlightening for some people, and people who may tune in and watch this, in the future. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much, David, and I hope to see you in London very soon, or when you come to Miami.
Indeed.
All my best, and thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Take
Have
care.
a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.